So, so today, we'll be talking about the United States and if it is an inclusive state when it comes to the educational system. So, in our table of contents, we will be tackling whether or not it is an inclusive country. It has the reasons why it is an inclusive country. We will perform its elaborations and examples. We will face its challenges and how to combat the challenges. And then, of course, we will have our synthesis for the end of the slides. So, go to the third slide. And Mr. Daniel will be presenting this part of it.
Good day, everyone. Today we will talk about if US is considered as inclusive education. But first of all, let's talk about what is inclusive education. When we say inclusive education, all children in the same classroom, in the same school. It means real learning opportunity for groups who have traditional been include not only children with disability. According to the US federal and state law, the United States do not explicitly refer to the inclusive education. That means that there is there is no such thing as law in the US that determine that they accept inclusive education. But wait, there's a twist. The National Center of the Education Restructuring and Inclusive, however, state that they develop a definition definition of inclusive in 1995. In the US, there are no law that determine that the US is considered as inclusive education, but in the US school, they accept inclusive education. Okay. The reason why the US is an inclusive state. First of all, we have individual education plan. Second, women's education in, in Equality Act, and the last good, student non discrimination act. That's all. And the next will be presenting by my groups. Thank you.
Hello, I am Jade, and now I'll be presenting to you the slide number 5. So in this slide, it is actually a research made by Onyx and Bullen of 2000, which involves placing students with various learning challenges, including those with physical disabilities, in the same classroom as those who are not. So they are trying to conduct a research to conjoin these two with physical challenges and those who are not. So yung success daw, or the success of this inclusive education, it depends on the relationship of the teachers and the learners. So implementing these diverse teaching strategies and adapting the curriculum to meet the needs of every child, and the curriculum adjustment, such as modifying content and then structural techniques, and are crucial for creating an inclusive learning environment. So with the research, they have able to come up with a program, also called as the Individual Educational Plan, or the IEP. So this, it issues that every students, even those who are experiencing physical challenges, or they have physical disabilities, they are welcome, or they can be able to access the same educational content as those who are normal. So the society who says them normal. So with this, the IEP does not only focus on the educational content or yung mga tinuturo ng teacher sa mga estudyante nila. So it also focuses na yung mga teachers, or the teachers also observe the behavior of their students through their socialization, the emotional state of the students, and also the organizational skills that the students are, if they may able to cope up with the lessons and such. So it also states here that teachers who implement such plans are better equipped to provide individual support and ensure that every student, regardless of their physical challenges, has an equal opportunity to learn and thrive within the inclusive classroom environment. So, saying na yung mga teacher, they may able to give their students a quality, not just to one particular group, but for everyone, uh, even if you have a challenge or disability that you are experiencing. So overall, this IEP program is actually now being implemented in the US, and this is to in this program, which is a finding and aims to create a supportive and which uh, not only a quality but an equitable educational environment for all students, even those with physical disabilities. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, let's now move on to Women's Educational Equity Act of 1974, also known as WEA, and was first enacted by the Congress in 1974 and amended and extended several times ever since. So the purpose of the law was to make education more equitable for girls and women by providing incentives and assistance to educational institutions and community groups. Also, the program was the first to fund innovative work to increase math and science achievement for girls and to increase female participation in non-traditional careers. Since the program was established, the WEA program has funded more than 700 projects throughout the United States. These grants address critical education and gender violence in math, science, and technological education, leadership development, and women's history and bilingual education. So the program has helped to shape equitable outcomes for an entire generation of girls and women and helping the country to reach such benchmark on those noted by the United States Department of Education entitled Title 9, 25 Years of Progress in 1997, and whereas as years passed by, girls and boys had similar achievement in the level of mathematics, and overall women achievements in the educational field has increased, especially in earning a bachelor's degree. That's all for the Women's Educational Equity Act of 1974.
What is Non-Discrimination Act of 2018? An act enforcing equality before the law and equal protection of the law, without discrimination and prohibiting discrimination on the basis of age, racial or ethnic origin, religious belief or activity, political inclination or conviction, social class, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, and disability, HIV status, health status, medical history, language, physical features, and other status, providing penalties. Therefore, why is it challenging in U.S. school system? Discrimination can occur in almost any aspect of school life, from the attitudes and expectation of the teachers to school rules and codes of conduct. Selection and grouping practices, circular teaching methods and materials, challenging facilities, career guidance, canteen food, and physical school environment. Whatever form it takes, whether it be parallel school system for different ethnic groups, concentrations of minority or disadvantages, children in the same school, or differential access to educational provision. It means a lower standard of quality education experience for the students being discriminated. According to Like Walking Through a Hailstorm in the year 2016, a lack of policies and practices that affirm and support LGBT youth and a failure to implement protections that do exist means that the LGBT students nationwide continue to face bullying, exclusion, and physical risks and limiting their education.
So we will then be tackling challenges for inclusive education. This will be reported by another one of my group members.
So now we're going to proceed to our next topic, which is the challenges faced by the US and world in inclusive education. It says that inclusive education in various regions of the country in the world still encounters various obstacles in the reality on the ground. Namely, the number of special assistant teachers is small, so it is not comparable by the number of inclusive students. So, it means that the other country in the world, including the US, there are not enough special assistant teachers available to support their students with disabilities because in many regions there is a shortage of teacher training programs, especially focused on special education. So, for example, a second grade class has 3 students with autism spectrum disorders, each requiring individualized attention and behavioral support. Yet, due to the shortage of special assistant teachers, there is only one available to serve the entire school. So, as the result, the teacher struggles to meet the unique needs of these students while also attending to the rest of the class. And then the state has not yet given special attention to the quality of teachers who can meet the demands of inclusive students. So it says that the United States lack of special attention to teacher quality for inclusive students. They are focusing on standardized testing rather than holistic student development. So let's say, for instance, limited funding often restricts the ability to provide specialized training and support for the teachers in inclusive classrooms, resulting in a gap in meeting the diverse needs of students with disabilities. And lastly, it says the infrastructure that is not yet optimal in supporting inclusive education. So it means that the infrastructure for supporting inclusive education in many places is often suboptimal due to the various factors such as outdated facilities, limited resources, and lack of awareness and commitment to inclusive practices. So, for instance, older school buildings may not be designed to accommodate students with disabilities, making it challenging to provide equal access.
And of course, the how to combat problems. This will be presented by Sir Charles.
Topic, we're going to discuss how to combat these given problems. So the first step to overcoming the barriers to inclusive education is to identify and address them. We can do this by conducting a needs assessment and involving all the stakeholders and collecting data on the current situation. We recognize and solve the problems that make it hard for all students to learn together. For the second step to overcoming the barriers to inclusive education is to foster a positive school culture that values and respects diversity. You can do this by creating a shared vision and mission, promoting a sense of belonging and community, and celebrating the achievements and contributions of all students. Here, we try to make the school a place where everyone feels welcome and valued, no matter who they are. For the third step, to overcoming the barriers to inclusive education is to adapt the teaching and learning process to meet the diverse needs and interests of your students. Here, we can do this by using differentiated instruction, universal design for learning, and formative assessment to provide a multiple ways of presenting, engaging, and assessing the content. So mainly, we change how we teach and learn to help all students, even if they have different needs. For the fourth steps of overcoming the barriers to inclusive education is to collaborate with others who can support you and your students. You can do this by forming a professional learning community with your colleagues, where you can share ideas, resources, feedbacks, and best practices. So for the first step, we work together with colleagues, specialists, and parents to get help and share idea for a better teaching and learning. So by following these four steps, schools and educators can work towards creating an inclusive environment where every student has the opportunity to succeed and thrive regardless of their background or abilities.
So our synthesis is gonna be shown here. I'll be reading it for you guys. The United States is a semi-inclusive state, still transcends barriers such as discrimination. It will likely remain like that. The US also has not implemented federal state laws that may help in fixing said barriers. Although the reasons are in place to challenge the challenges still needed to be tackled because of the views of different public opinions. So if we're looking at the United States, they're not really inclusive because there is still a very large population that is very discriminative to different races, different cultures. Unless you're actually white, some of them actually do not think you are American. Um, they also think that people with physical conditions such as blindness, deaf, or hearing impairment, they are not supposed to be given education. That's not really what education is supposed to be. Everyone is supposed to have an equal amount of education, and this is one of the harsh displays of the United States and why I believe that it's a semi-inclusive. I mean, there are a lot of people who are um, advocating for for special children to be included in the educational system, but it's like we're going back or some of these people are reverting back to what they did in the 60s, which was the practice of segregation. And that was when the blacks were basically segregated from basically everywhere, public areas, libraries, parks. If they do not if they cannot learn from what they have done in the past, it's probably gonna be the same. It's gonna have the same effect as it did about 50 years ago, 60 years ago actually now. And if the United States don't actually start fixing their problems in the educational barriers, then they will not be considered an inclusive state anymore. You can't also call it a semi-inclusive state anymore because they are not trying to fix the root cause of the problems. So that is our report, guys. That is our report, guys. Ito pa yung mga references namin. Feel free to picture if you want, so you can make your own research. And that's what we believe the United States educational system is. Thank you.